Hello, I'm Jeff Jones, Fast Track Software's Territory Director for EMEA. And today I'm going to continue the webinar series on usage personas. Previously, you may have seen the POP use case scenario, and today we're going to cover the one we call Robo. So, what does a Robo use case scenario look like? Well, actually, I like to think that you would tend to get these situations in kind of manufacturing, in academia, and also industrial applications. And quite frequently, these come up where you have computers attached to machinery. Maybe that machinery, there's some actuators or sensors involved, and the computer needs full control over kind of COM ports and stuff in order to make those sensors and actuators to work. In order to do that, quite frequently, such computers require full local admin. And it's quite troublesome to remove the local admin rights, because once you remove local admin rights, then you hit the UAC wall, and that then requires user input. And if you're in a kind of production or a testing kind of environment where there's stuff going on all the time, it's not always possible for someone literally to be there and kind of type in usernames and passwords and authenticate, nor is it possible for someone to call up someone in the help desk to kind of do a remote session, because it may be out of hours or just may not be convenient, and it would be quite disruptive. So we have a configuration that really helps this use case scenario, and I'm going to show you how to configure that today. So we have my kind of test system here, and I've configured this as I always do with webinars, so that we don't have any admin rights at all. So if I just try and run something as administrator, I'm going to the UAC pop up as you'd expect. And actually, that's kind of how we want this particular endpoint to behave. We don't want it having any local admin rights at all, apart from maybe a single application that is needed to drive those actuators, the machinery or whatever. So what I'm going to do for this use case scenario is I'm going to pick a particular application, and I'm only choosing it because this application can run without elevation, and it can do certain things. And then in order for it to do kind of everything, you need it to kind of run elevated. So that presents another particular issue as well. So we'll go ahead and have a look at how we can get this application working. So the application that we're going to use here is called CCleaner. It's just, as I said, a good example because it can work both non-elevated and elevated. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable this application to be used in what we call pre-approval. So I'm going to go through my audit log, and I'm going to see, here's, as they say, one I prepared earlier. So if I go into CCleaner, I can actually mark this specific file. So it'd be the version that we got here. So this is one way to do it. I can enable logging, and I can go in, put it in my user subsetting. So like this, we have essentially we're putting in a kind of whitelist, so to speak, that the computer itself has no elevation capabilities at all, apart from this particular file matching this specific checksum. So let's go ahead and put that in. So there it is now in there. So let's go back to the endpoint. So I can just double left click on CCleaner and it'll start. And it's currently started. If I go into task manager details, you should see CCleaner is not elevated. Now it can do various things, and all the things that it does in the user profile and HKey current user. But if I was to go to, for example, startup, maybe services, and I was to try to enable a disabled service like this one, I'm going to get an access denied because the application is not elevated. And that is where I would end had I not had admin by request and I didn't have any ability to elevate the application. So all I have to do is right click on this and go run as administrator. And you'll see now we get the prompt with the interactive yes, no, which is confirm mode. And I'm going to hit yes. The application now launches elevated. So let's just go and check to make sure that is indeed the case. There we go. And if I now head over to tools and then I go startup services, I can now enable this service or disable it without hitting that denied error. Perfect. Okay. So that is going to enable a user to simply elevate a specific application, and you could load in more applications if there's a few of them. But there is perhaps one slight issue, and that is that if this is part of a unattended script or routine, when it comes to elevate this application, you do hit the interactive prompt, yes or no, and that would essentially grind your automation to a halt because it's waiting for someone to click a button. So we have a way to kind of get around that, and it's important that when you add rules like this that you are absolutely sure that the file that you're marking as pre-approved, as we call it, is safe. So I'd recommend that you put it through your EDR sandbox solution to be absolutely sure they're safe. But once you're sure it's safe, then you can go back to the rule and you can edit it. And then you can switch off what we call user confirmation, like so, and then hit save. So what this does is it removes the requirement for that interactive prompt. So I can go right click, run as administrator, and you see it just launches straight away. I get a little splash here telling me that ABR has done something, but if I go tools and go startup and services, you can see I can enable and disable that, and the application is most definitely running as administrator. So this is really, in a nutshell, quite a simple configuration, but it's quite a handy one, especially if you're having to manage endpoints that up to now have required local admin rights. You have compliance audits requiring you to remove those, but the people that use these endpoints are essentially saying they need full local admin rights to run the kit that they have. So with the Robo use case, you can configure admin rights for those specific applications, and those can be unattended, automatically elevated to, and then everything else on the system can be running as a non-administrator, and the user has no ability to even request admin rights for anything else apart from what you assigned. And that is the Robo use case. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.